Hi you guys, it's been a really long time since I've done a new plot lines and lip lines episode, and I have a slew of books to talk about as well as some new makeup products, so I thought this would be the perfect time to update you guys on all the juicy details. So I want to start toasting things up, and I thought what better way to show you guys my favorite bronzer of the summer. It's by RMS and this is Beach Walk Betty. So to relate the makeup to books, let's toast it up with Penelope Sky's book. Get a segue into the RMS blushes. I've had these, they're not new. But of course, when I was reading this book by Penelope Sky, I was blushing at some point, so it's the perfect time to mention blushes. I put these on the other day and I got some compliments, and I looked in the mirror and I was like, why does my skin honestly look blurred? I've heard a lot of people say when they put things on that their skin looks blurred or airbrushed, and it's like, I don't really know if I believe it. But I put these on the other day, and honest to God, when I looked in the mirror, my skin really did, like the pores and everything they all look smooth. Totally unlike the relationships in this book, which were not smooth. So I started using them again, and they do have a little bit of a shimmery tint. This is French Rose. It is just that perfect little pop of pink. I love it. And if you want to blush while you're reading and try some new blushes, I just keep dipping back into the RMS beauty line because their products are really fantastic, just like Penelope Sky's books. I feel like, especially in the lighting, it looks like I went a little overboard with the blush, but we will blend it out because the characters in that book definitely went overboard. You know, it's interesting about the writing because I think really talented authors can write these villainous characters, and by the end of the third series I truly abhorred her husband, and if you read that series you'll know why. But in the first book, when he started feeling remorse, I was starting to feel remorse, and I was like, who should they go with? I mean, I always in my mind wanted her to stay with this one character, but I think that just speaks to Sky's writing, because when you read like a dark romance, it's not about like kinks or things like that. In my mind, a dark romance is characters that have a lot of psychological issues. They've been raised to be the villains. They go overboard like I did with my blush, but eventually the writing helps smooth things out. And I feel like writing a good dark romance, you have to get those characters to fall in love and accept all these villainous traits. And I just feel like I had a handful of authors who can do that, who could make me actually root for the villain. And by the way, her other love interest also has a really interesting backstory and maybe a bit of like a secret society mafia twist too. So that just added so much spice to the book. Please read this series. The next book I read was Brutal Ambitions, a Secret Society Romance by Sam Mariano. I hope I'm pronouncing that right because I'm reading it really tiny. So this book, if you liked Haunting Adeline, the start of the book reminded me of that, but it didn't go as dark as Haunting Adeline. But I thought, what better way to talk about some little highlights while I highlight this book. So this is the L'Oreal Illuminator Highlighter, however many names they want to say to it. This is not new, I just have not been able to find it. Did try their blushes, they were way too much for me. It was like, I looked like a clown, which just made me think of another book. I think it's called Hate by Kate, and she goes to like this crazy party. If you read it, you'll know what I mean. But this was the perfect amount. It is pigmented, but for a drugstore highlighter, I like to just add a little highlight there, a little Rudolph glowy nose. So back to the book. We will shine some light on this book. It reminded me of Haunting Adeline because you kind of had like the blurb is like she's wanting to see this masked man. It starts out with some like triggers, like she goes to a party and she's kind of lured down to a basement where she sees these guys that she went to the party with, and it kind of unravels into this secret society that's a little trigger warning-y. This is like a darker romance, so I would read the triggers before. But unlike Haunting Adeline, I feel like it didn't go as dark. It was a good book. I would read it if you like that kind of like stalker trope. But what surprised me was the character, who I thought the main guy was going to be more like darker, more morally gray and villainous. He kind of started going a little more lighter gray when we got into the book, which was refreshing because I feel like sometimes you read these dark romance books and you think it's going to be one way. Like, I thought this was going to perform like the blushes and look like I had like pixie dust just thrown on my face. This book really surprised me. It's the first book I've read by her. I would definitely read more. So if you're not sure, like if Haunting Adeline was too heavy for you, but you kind of like that vibe, but you didn't want to go down for the whole adventure, I would try this book. And I would try the highlight. The next book I read was God of War by Ronna Kent. It was the final book in this series. I have been anxiously waiting this series. If you've never read her book, I consider her the queen of dark romance, in the sense that her characters have a lot of psychological issues. They're villains. I don't know if you're going to ever see them as the good guy, but if that is your jam, you have to turn the pages of her book. So I hate to compare Ken's book to this product because this was a total fail. Charlotte Tilbury's glowy thing. First of all, they're marketing this as a foundation. It's not, it's a highlighter and a stick. And basically I tried to put it all over my face, like how they market it. I mean, it would be great for Halloween because you will look like the Tin Man. It is like, I don't know who has their face so shiny and glowy. Definitely pass on this item. I'm a huge fan of Charlotte Tilbury. Have her stuff littered all over my counter. It is just save your pennies and go spend them on this book instead. So back to Ken's book. This was the final book in the series. And funny enough, like as I mentioned, her books are dark. But this book was actually found, it was the most lightest shade of morally gray out of all the books I've read from her. It was not as dark. I mean, you still had those sprinklings. I think she ended the series really, really beautifully. It's so hard to wrap up a series because you just want to really deliver to your fans. And she did. I will read any book she writes. She can get me to read stuff I never thought I would read. It is an amnesia trope. I just feel like I could wax poetic about all her books. To be very honest and frank with you guys, this was not my favorite book out of this whole series because, like I said, it was not as dark as the other ones. The characters were not as like onion peeled, like you peel back all those layers of these dark and dirty details. There's a few other tidbits that I wanted in the book that I didn't get, but I still rate it a 5-star because I love her book. They're always written so beautifully. I just feel like, and maybe because I know it's the last book in the season, in the series, that I want more and I don't want it to end. I cannot wait to see what she does next because these were the kids of the characters of another series. I can't imagine writing that long, and I'm sure she wants to move on, and I just feel like she sent this off so wonderfully. It wasn't too dark. I feel like it was actually a really good book. Probably should, if you've never read one of her books, this would be a good book because it's not too dark. You have those sprinkles, you have the amnesia, you have mafia families, these powerful societies, the thrills, the suspense. You have the angst of she wakes up and she's married to a guy that throughout college she tried to get his attention and he always turned her down, and eventually she has to discover why did she marry him and also what happened to her. Why did she get the amnesia? There was a party involved and she was in an accident, and I thought that originally like this was why she got the amnesia. It kept me on my toes. So definitely I applaud her for writing. I feel like she writes the darkest romance in such a way that can grab the hearts of so many people. And like I said, she can get me to read things I never thought I would read. Before I talk about the best book I didn't only read this year, but it's one of my top books that I've ever read, I'm going to talk about one more book that I read, and I'm going to talk about some new lippy products. So I tried these ILIa, it's their version of a tinted lip oil. They are really pigmented, and I love that about them because sometimes The thing is, you see people put lipstick on and then an oil on top, but most of the time that oil, the products in it are gonna break down the lipstick, so you're just kind of wasting it. But I feel like these were so pigmented that I could do it all in one shot. This color is Linger. Loved it so much that I bought this, which is called Saint. That feels like the perfect name for like a angsty college romance book. This is very orange. I love the color because I like corally colors. I really wish they had a red one, but these last fairly good for a lip oil. The pigment does leave a very faint stain, like the memories of the book I'm gonna mention, but also I would be remiss if I do not mention these. A few weeks ago, it was National Lipstick Day. So Nordstrom's had a sale and I picked up these. I have a bunch of these YSL lipsticks. You feel the lipstick on your lip, like you feel the coating, but it feels so scrumdiddlyumptious. It feels so luxurious on your lips. This is one of, and by the way, I'm a lipstick fanatic. I hardly ever like rebuy the same lipstick when I run out of it because there's just so many new things. I love this lipstick so much that I restocked on 2 colors I had. So that just shows you. This is their version. It is number 44. And it's just a beautiful everyday pink color. They're so nourishing on the lips, especially if you have dry lips. They last very long. I can eat and drink, and of course they're not transfer proof. I'm not gonna lie to you guys and say they're not gonna wear off. They are. It's a lipstick, but you still have that faint bit. You know how sometimes lipsticks, like they always wear off in the center and then you're left with like a lip liner or rim that's not attractive? These don't do that. They're just incredibly nourishing. This last color was a new one I got. This was 16, and it's really just like, it's a good everyday warmer tone. So let's talk about a good all-around book read. This author never fails me. I have to zoom in to read her name. So this book, the following one, anytime I read her books, and she primarily writes like military characters in her books. Anytime I read her books, you guys, I honestly feel like I'm watching, or I'm reading, I should say, like a Netflix movie. They are always so action-packed. You have, like, her books are not dark romance. The heroes are heroes. They were military men. Her books never disappoint me. Like, when I want to read an action book with like spies, it's not too much of like a thriller. Like, of course there's always like a mystery to solve with the plot. If not, it wouldn't be interesting. But her books, literally, it's like it's putting a Netflix movie in a book. They never disappoint me. She is so, I feel like all the details in her book regarding like the military, like terminology, and I believe that her husband, I think in her blurb, I believe he was in the military. Someone is, if not, just, you know, erase that from your mind. But you can tell that she's very educated in these terms because I feel like I'm like learning stuff about the military and how it works when I read her books. And I have read so many of her books. You just have like a really good hero. If you're not into dark romance and you want an honest to God hero, this is the author for you. You guys, I just realized I'm trying to find like the line of giving you details about the book without spoiling it. So this book, and I read it like a month ago, but you have this girl and she was rescued by the hero, but he's married. And even though they have chemistry when they rescue him, he's very loyal. He's the good guy hero and he's married. But his wife, he starts to uncover that his wife, who is like this billionaire heiress, she has a lot of secrets to hide. And this is in the back cover. The wife eventually is murdered. So that's not a spoiler. But what I loved about this book was everything I thought was happening. I thought the wife's secrets were pertaining to this. And I thought this was the reason why she was murdered. When I got halfway through the book, things pivoted, which kept me on my toes. And then when I got near the end of the book, things pivoted again. His wife had so many secrets. And at first I was like, is the wife like an evil person? Is that why she had secrets and she was murdered? But they do come to redemption, in my mind at least. I don't think that's not really a spoiler. It's just my own opinion. I love that this book, it just kept me guessing. I was like, what other secret is this wife gonna come out of the woodworks? And then of course you have him trying to you know, accept this new relationship with the girl, and he's a widow now. And she's also this insanely smart scientist. I'm trying to do this review really fast. She's a scientist that he has to rescue again. He has to keep coming to her rescue, and every time they meet, you know, those chemistries, just firework in the sky. It's a fantastic book. And once again, she's one of those authors that I can pick up her book. I know exactly what I'm getting. I'm getting a good guy hero. I'm getting redemption. I'm getting a little suspense. I'm getting military and government, some spies. It never lets me down. Just like these YSL lipsticks, they never let me down. Okay, the best book I read this month, and one of the top books that I have ever read, coincides with a splurge of makeup. You guys, I don't know what happened to me. Well, I do. I was down the rabbit hole of Instagram, and I watched one of my favorite makeup artists swatch these YSL eyeliners. It became a problem. We bought a lot. We bought another brand, and I love all of them just as much as I love this book. I'm so tempted to dive into the book, so let's quickly talk about the eyeliners. Of course, you know, there is nothing different about the colors. I mean, any makeup brand has these colors, but the formula, I mean, everyone says the formula is innovative. I love the formula. It glides on really creamy. It lasts long, it's smudge proof. But what I also love is this little angled brush. Why is no one giving us an angled brush? This little brush allows me to make the perfect little cat line. Even if I do, of course I can't do it good on my hand. You could already see it's drying, so you do need to work fast. But when I do this on my eye, and I'll do it for you, you just can like smudge it on. You can be as messy as you want. Just like the characters in this next book were very messy and complicated, and you just can't mess it up. And that rolled me into trying Victoria Beckham's eyeliners. I've seen so many people talk about these. I tried it, and I'm kicking myself for not trying these earlier. I'm like, why in the world have I not read a Pepper Winters book before? As you can see, I bought quite a few shades from Victoria Beckham. I'm gonna show you kind of a fun color that some of you guys might be a little intimidated. It's this teal green. I think it's called Surfside. And it's like this teal. Of course, on the website, it looks a little lighter. This is gorgeous. I mean, I don't know why people are not, first of all, let me sidetrack. It does have a little smudger. I wish it had the angled brush, but this does allow you, I mean, you can wear these like an eyeliner. I don't know why people don't consider these teal blue colors. They're a really gorgeous neutral. Any color I can wear it, it really makes the eyes pop. And I will put it on for you now while I start talking about the book. One more thing I have to say about the eyeliners. If you are a busy mom, if you are a busy human who wants to wear an eyeliner, this is the eyeliner for you. It's honestly like foolproof. You can smudge it on, wing it out. You can just smudge it all in if you're busy. You honestly can't mess these up. I've not found another eyeliner that has the consistency like these. They are just stunning. So what I do is I basically just smudge it on. Don't worry, don't panic. You're busy, you're in the car, dropping your kids off in the carpool line waiting. It's fine, you can do this there. It does have this great little spongy applicator, and you can create a wing with it. I'm trying to multitask here. And then I'm just gonna use my finger to clean it up. Voila, that's really all you need. They are just amazing. And if you're traveling and you're trying to do your makeup, you have, a 2-year-old hugging your leg, you can just scribble it on, rub it out, and just make an eyeshadow. You cannot mess these up. I really wish I tried them earlier. I can't wait to get more colors and experiment. I've already got 4 other colors, and every day I feel like the biggest battle is what color am I gonna wear, because they're just so fun. But once again, this is that Surfside blue. And the color looks intimidating, but you could put this on any color eye, and it's just that perfect, unexpected neutral. So I'm gonna finish my eye while I tell you guys. So, full disclosure, one of my readers recommended this book. And I just love having those relationships where people have read my books, but then we start, you know, private messaging and we talk about other things. I just find that so special. And I love when I can find the time in the day to connect with my readers, not just on my books, but books that they've read. So she recommended this book. Well, she recommended this author and this book series. So to be honest with you guys, the first book I read by this author, it was not this book. And the book was a little too triggering for me. I couldn't get into it. But I was like, let me just try another book because I trust my readers' opinions. I am so happy that I found this book and I listened. This was one of the most emotional books I read. If you've read the Ravenhood series by Kate Stewart, like that was one of my top emotional books. Like for a solid week, I felt like my throat was clogged with emotion when I was reading that series. This series did the same thing, but this was the first time I ever read a book where there was so many emotional tragedies in the book. And I was reading the chapters, but it was so deep and in depth, and it was hitting me so hard that I actually would have to put the book aside for a few days. It was like I wanted to find the ending. I wanted to see that these characters got that light at the end of the tunnel, but it was just so gut-wrenching that I had to set it down and I had to read a different book in between. And I've never read a book like that where it's like I want to find the ending so bad, but I also need like a little breather because it's really deep. This series follows Aslan, who is an immigrant, and he's immigrating, well, he's fleeing his country to Australia. And by the way, I'm gonna try to keep it so there's no spoilers because I want you guys who do decide to read the book to have those experiences that I did. So he is fleeing with his family, and I think what made this so gut-wrenching is the things that he experienced while fleeing. It happens all around the world, and it makes me question all the time, like, why was I lucky enough to be born in a country where I don't have to flee and, you know, worry about my life? And I think about the kids who were born in other countries and they don't have the same opportunities we do. I don't want to segue to something sad, but this book just had my mind all over the place. And it made me realize, like, there was times I cried during it. There was times I just realized how lucky I was to be born where I was. And not many of us have that opportunity. It just helps you keep an open mind. So he's fleeing. I'm not going to tell you what happens when he flees, but you will discover it yourself. He's rescued by these marine biologists who are in the ocean. And they have a little daughter, and the relationship starts out where he's like a young teenager and the girl's little, and she's a very bold, adventurous, wild girl, and she says right from the start that she's gonna marry him. You kind of go through him coping all these heavy emotional losses. At the same time, you have her growing up and being like this wild female who knows what she wants. I can't say too much more because I don't want to ruin it, but throughout the whole book, and I didn't realize this was a 2-book series too, but they're already released. Throughout the whole book, you're kind of left wondering, there's this big secret about why his family was fleeing, and he carries a lot of guilt because he knows that it's his fault. His family had to read the whole time. We don't know why. So he's this teenager growing up with a lot of guilt in a country where he's an illegal immigrant. He's hiding. The family they know that he's hiding, but they decide to let him hide and stay with him and live with him. But then you have this constant fear while you're reading it. Like when he goes in town and he's pulled over once, like in the car, it's like, are they going to ask for his ID and find out he's an illegal immigrant? Will he be sent back to his country where he's going to be killed? It's like these things happen every day all around us and you don't realize it. So this book really highlighted it in such a emotional way that it just stuck an arrow through my heart, and the characters are just forever there embroidered on it. Of course, like, and as I mentioned, like, I had to keep putting this book down for a few days because there's so many tragedies that happen in the book, not just to him but to the girl, to oh gosh, you read the trigger warnings, but even if you're hesitant because some of the trigger warnings, please have the bravery to pick up and read this book. I think it ended beautifully. One thing that confused me at first, it was kind of told like, if you remember, the Titanic starts out where the older lady is telling the story. So you have the main character, and she's older and she's giving her, basically her biography to these reporters. And then it flashes back. The bulk of it is the flashback when they're younger and they're falling in love and enduring all of this stuff. But then it kept me wondering, I was like, where is Aslan now that they're older? Like, she's this older lady giving this interview. The whole time I start to like sew together this quilt and I'm like, oh gosh, something must have happened to him. This is why the ending totally changed everything that I thought I knew. I honestly could talk about this book for a long time, but I feel like the more I'm going to keep talking about it, I'm going to trip up and spoil it for you guys. I just need you to know, it is one of the best books I have ever read. Very heavily emotional, but talks about real circumstances. If there's one book you're going to put ahead of your to be read list and give it a try, it has to be this book. It just has to be. But prepare yourself. You're going to need tissues. You're going to need like to give yourself mental breaks, but it is so worth it. I am arc reading a book right now by an author that I really love and enjoy all her books, so I will try to do a video on that. I am also reading a fantasy book that's really surprised me and I really loved it. I've never read a book by that author before. I hope you guys enjoyed this plot lines and lip lines. I'll try to do them more often, but to be completely honest with you guys, my writing and my books, they're taking up so much of my time because things are really accelerating at a fantastic rate, and I'm so thankful to my fans. So this is kind of like the sidetrack that I will try to do once a month because I'm not just an author, but I'm an avid reader myself, and I love watching your TikTok reviews and your social media reviews, so I have to try to give you guys my reviews as well. I hope you guys all have a great day. Remember to keep reading, keep having fun, trying new makeup and goodies, and that's it. I will see you guys later.